I'm not going to specifically go over how Nen works, as there are many other people who are more willing to read a wiki page for you. This video isn't explaining Nen, but it's more of a tribute to Nen. I'm going to talk about how Nen is used in a narrative sense and how the series benefits from it. With that being said, let's get started. Nen is such a tightly written battle system that is by far the best Shounen has to offer. Just kidding, not really. It's detailed enough for those who want to dig into the fine specifications, yet simple enough to be understood by people who are just casually watching. So diverse that it has innumerable possibilities and applications, while still having very defined limitations. It also perfectly demonstrates characterization and progression. The perfect platform for rich, character-based Shounen. There are 6 Nen types, and according to Hisoka's personality test, enhancers are simple, honest, and determined. Transmuters are whimsical and prone to deceit and dishonesty. Emitters are impatient, not detail-oriented, and quick to act in a volatile manner. Conjurers are typically high-strung, overly serious, stoic, and observant. Manipulators are argumentative and logical, choosing to advance at their own pace. And specialists are independent, individualistic, and charismatic. Gon is a simple boy who slowly finds pleasure in the thrill of fighting. He's like a gambler, a self-indulged risk-taker. His Nen ability, Jajanken, is one where he focuses all of his Nen into a single strike in hopes of it working out. Rock, paper, or scissors. Guess wrong and you could be done for. Guess right and Gon just lost a ton of Nen and now you have the advantage. It's simple, childish, and risky, reflecting Gon's character tendencies to a T. Even his adult transformation is similar conceptually to Jajanken. He gives up his future and all of the potential he had, storing it all into this one moment and hoping it works out. Crollo is a well-known criminal, the leader of the Phantom Troop, a group with an A-class bounty. He doesn't have an identity of his own, thus he doesn't really have an original Nen ability. He wants to learn more about himself and humanity, which ironically gives him an aura of conviction, giving him a sort of charisma. He takes great interest in the intricacies and individualities of humans. Thus, his ability is to steal other people's abilities. In a way, stealing their identity. Knuckle puts on the appearance of a tough guy, but it's really just a facade hiding his cowardice. Knuckle has to punch you to activate his ability. He can continue fighting you, but his ability is used most effectively when he runs away. The ability is built up like it's for a tough guy, but it's best used by a coward. Nen is built in a way that constructs complex, intellectual battles, as opposed to most other shonen where the outcome is basically determined by whoever has the biggest blast, or the strongest power, or the most chakra or ki. It's nearly impossible to predict the winner of a Nen battle. This is because the fights in Hunter x Hunter are so cerebral. Nen battles are never determined by whoever has the most Nen. If that were the case, enhancers would win every battle. Nen battles are about who can mend their Nen with the most nuance to outwit their opponent. This allows Nen battles to be unpredictable and endlessly creative. Nen abilities are just that, abilities. They're not standalone techniques. So you can adapt and mold your ability to fit any sort of situation, as opposed to a standalone technique which is far more restrictive. Some of my favorite Nen abilities are Franklin's finger guns, Zeno's dragons, and Finks' wind-up punch. The more he winds up, the stronger it gets. Reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong from Smash Bros. One of the most important attributes behind building a fantasy story is establishing its setting. An interesting and well-constructed setting is the backbone of all fantastical work. Hunter x Hunter is an odd case as the series is grounded in relative reality, meaning Nen isn't a major component in how their society functions. This doesn't stop the world of Hunter x Hunter from being uninteresting. The first story arc starts off with a young boy with an affinity for nature, another young boy with family problems, an intelligent boy who's reluctant to open up, and a klutz with a pure heart. We see these guys perform some superhuman stunts, but we're made aware of the fact that they're severely outclassed by a few select individuals. It isn't until we're introduced to Nen where our scope of the world begins to broaden. However, what's especially interesting about Nen is how it isn't a main component of its world. Nen isn't something the general public is aware of, despite the fact that they can all theoretically use it. Only a few rare individuals are able to tap into some of Nen's properties without their realization. These individuals are typically known as geniuses, psychics, or superhumans to the public. This can be anything from inadvertently being able to use the basic properties of Nen, or unconsciously developing a unique Nen ability that can be used without you really understanding how or why it works. This is typically seen through geniuses of their own field, people like Neon, Zepile, and Komugi to name a few. This notion subverts the standard we've come used to. It's not only through training that one can unlock Nen. It plays into the idea that Nen isn't actually a power system, but rather life energy itself. Your own life energy that you've manipulated, making Nen feel all the more personal. Those who unlock Nen without them knowing are, in a way, enlightened. There are even Nen abilities and applications that have nothing to do with actual combat. Nen simply reflects who we are in our natural state. People who have mastered Nen can live upwards of 110, potentially even 300 years with little signs of physical aging. The last thing I want to talk about is how Nen isn't intrinsically woven into the setting but rather develops with the plot. I kind of talked about this before, but whenever we're introduced to a new plot line, different layers and concepts of Nen are also unfolded for us. Our first time seeing Nen, we aren't even aware of it. Gon conceals his presence and hides from Hisoka. This event is followed by Illumi intimidating Killua. We still don't know much about this mysterious power at this point. Similar to how we don't know much about this world in general. It's not until Gon and Killua formally learn Nen where the show begins to come into its own. Hisoka vs Castro is a fight that takes place immediately after. It's a fight that shows us how convoluted Nen battles can really get. Some true out-of-the-box, larger-than-life thinking was required in order to pull off the stuff they did. In York New, we find out how Nen vows can exponentially increase your power thanks to Kurapika. We learn that Nen is closely tied to one's emotions. His reckless vows and limitations made him virtually invincible against the troop. Greed Island is the arc where Gon and Killua's friendship fully flourishes. This is also where Nen's concepts are fully developed. Later on, we find out Kite was somehow reincarnated into an ant after death. Buddhists believe death is a natural part of the life cycle. They believe that after death, we are simply reborn. Our spirit seeks out a new body. What you're reborn into is essentially karma. Kite was reborn as an ant, which are stronger than humans, but it's still an ant, so it's technically an animal. And animals are lower than humans on the what you want to get reincarnated into totem pole. So does that mean Kite had good karma or bad karma? I'm really not sure. It's too early to talk about Kite right now, if I'm being honest. The Ant arc hints at the idea that Nen can not only survive past death, but also make them stronger because of it. This suspicion is further built upon in the Dark Continent after Hisoka fights Crollo. In the 13th Chairman and Dark Continent arc, we are introduced to Nen beasts. Nen that can take on its own individual form, structure, and identity. Heading into the Dark Continent, I still don't think we know too much about Nen. Story arc after story arc, more applications are introduced. I'm extremely excited to see how the series and Nen develop in the future, whenever Togashi decides he wants to start writing again. But yeah, that's all I have to say for this video. In the end, the video was quite a bit of speculation. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. I've wanted to make this video for a while now. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Alright, peace.